Every company has difference makers, the people who go above and beyond what's required. This podcast is dedicated to the people who challenge the status quo and make good companies great. Today, we're sharing one story from one company in our effort to inspire others. Welcome to Difference Makers. Today, my guest is Roland Rainey Jr. Roland is a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force and Space Force for over 24 years, currently still active. He has also been commander and is commander of a National Reconnaissance Office Operations Squadron. If that wasn't enough, he is host of his own sports talk show called Extra Point Sports Talk Show, hosted on ESPN Denver. Roland has been involved additionally, in addition to his military career, in collegiate and professional levels football over a span of the last 15 years. He's been a collegiate Division II coach, a semi-professional team owner, player, and coach, and also has been a high school coach and also now a professional football scout. Roland, that is a lot. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, what a story. What an amazing story. We've had an opportunity to talk early about where you came from and where it all began. Quite an inspiring story for someone to come from somewhere and really create their own American dream. And that's what we do here at Difference Makers. We like to talk to people that make a difference, people that can inspire others. And so without further ado, why don't you start and just kind of tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you started, where you came from, and where you are now?
Oh, well, appreciate it. Very unique background. I was born and raised in southern Louisiana, a town called Painkerville, Louisiana, which is on a sugarcane plantation called Westville. So I lived my entire life there until I was 17 years old, graduated high school. And because I wanted to do something different besides going off to college, I wanted to see what the world really had. You know, you see as a kid, you saw all types of things on television, and the community I lived in was very small knit. You get a different take on what the world really looks like from my community. So instead of just going off to local college, I decided, well, hey, pursue something that's different, that's going to provide an adventure for you, that's going to quench that thirst for wanting to know more. So after seeing a couple of military recruiters at the high school, I decided to join the Air Force. So from the Air Force, went in as an enlisted member, started out as an airman basic, was a personnelist to boot on top of that. So from there, my career kind of took off, did some great things. But when I left Louisiana, I went through boot camp in Texas, and my first assignment was in Great Falls, Montana. So imagine that, leaving the southernmost part of Louisiana and now being a young airman in the most northern part of the United States in Montana. And then I arrived there in a snowstorm. So that's the way my career started, and it's been one adventure ever since.
Right? Welcome to the world. Leave the swamp
exactly.
and humidity,
exactly.
And you're in a snowstorm, and you're saying, "What the heck did I just do?" Right?
Yeah, I actually felt that way.
Yeah. So you were here in this small town, really not a lot of opportunity, but here you're watching TV. You know that the world could offer so much more. There was just that itch, right? And so the military provided that for you?
Yeah, it did. I was already a very inquisitive kid growing up, and I always looked at the world through a different lens. I always looked at the world from a sense of, wow, there's just so much opportunity out there. And boy, I would love just to be a part of that. So I think that was a lot of the drive, a lot of the passion behind me wanting to do something a whole lot different in the world. So joining the military definitely not only scratched that itch, but it was proven to provide me a tremendous amount of opportunities, things that I never thought in a million years I would be able to accomplish.
Great. That's awesome. So you go into the military. You've now been in the military going on 25 years, right?
Yeah.
Take us through. How did you become an officer? You you went in enlisted, right? So how did you become an officer?
Yeah, I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, and I had a couple of mentors out there who just really liked my leadership style. They liked the way I attack problems. They liked the way I engage with people in my organization. And I remember the day I was actually deployed in a location called Oman when a 06, a full bird colonel, pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, why are you not an officer?" And he said, "When we get back to the States, come to my office." And he was not joking. I actually, probably a week after we returned home, my boss, my direct boss, Lieutenant Colonel Ken McKinney, called me into his office and said, "Hey, Colonel Strain wants to see both of us because he wants you to put in a package to get commissioned." So, uh, a small conversation that took place in the desert, and having folks who mentored me and really looked at how I conducted myself, decided to invest into me by putting me up for a commission.
Now, not everyone is officer material. So someone saw something in you, that leadership quality, that inquisitive nature that you had to be better, do more. Is that fair?
And I think that's a very fair assessment. I poured a lot of energy into my work when I was stationed at Ellsworth. Got a lot of accolades and so forth, but I was able to change some of the dynamics of our work environment. And I was able to do that while cultivating a small community of folks in our work centers. So I believe that itself help other leaders look at me just slightly different and say, "Hey, this is a go-to guy for us. So let's make sure that we continue to mentor him and show him all the different facets of being a leader in the military."
So where did sports come in? And I think the most impressive thing here is that you have pretty much had three careers going at the same time while raising a family, being a great dad. Uh, Tell me about that. You didn't play sports in high school?
No, I didn't. I was actually a band geek. I played the trombone and I loved it, every minute of it. I played the trombone starting out in the fifth grade and all the way to my senior year in high school. I mean, I was a manager for the baseball team, but that was about it. My career really in sports didn't start until I joined the military. The military is really huge for intramural sports. So I got heavily involved in intramural sports, on base and off base. And one day, while I was stationed in Montana, someone made a comment about my talents and my speed and said, "Hey, you should go try out for this semi-pro team that's here in the region." And I kind of blew it off initially. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Hmm.
And, after I saw an article in the newspaper, I was like, "Well, what's the worst they can tell me? No." Okay, fine. So I went out there, had a great tryout, and got a call the very next day that I had made the team. And I would actually say from that point on, I haven't looked back from sports. Did well there, was a player, stopped playing for a while due to an ankle injury. And of course, didn't want to jeopardize my military career. So the head coach offered me an assistant offensive coordinator job. From there, I moved my way up to offensive coordinator. And then my last year of being in Montana, before I departed to move to another military base, the head coach decided to start a family and step down as head coach. I got an interview with the owner, who was the vice president of a investment bank, and the interview went extremely well. He liked my vision I was putting forward, and he hired me on as the next head coach. So I was pretty excited about it, and it worked out extremely well. It was the first time that team went to the playoffs. We actually went to the divisional round and played a team out of Idaho, and the rest is history from there.
Wow. So what was the turnaround there with being able to take this team that had never made the playoffs or hadn't been to the playoffs in a while? What were some of the key components that you were able to do there to get them performing?
I think it was just a different energy. Also, I brought a different scheme of offense. I actually ran a hybrid spread. And one of the things with a hybrid spread type of offense is it gave, we were very much rooted in the past in a run game.
Hmm.
This was a great balance of doing a little bit of run, play action, but in integrating a pass offense, something that a lot of teams never saw out of this one. It allowed our quarterback to showcase his skill set. We were able to bring in a couple of very talented wide receivers. So we already had a talented backfield. With the wide receivers, has made it even better. Our defense was always great. So it was a great blend that season of bringing something new, something more energetic on the field. And then everybody just bought into my vision of team play, and it worked out well.
Hmm. Team play coming from probably military experience,
Oh,
understanding
yeah,
how to
without a
promote
doubt.
that, right? That human
Without a
development
doubt.
piece. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that I've ever accomplished in my career, it plays off each other. Everything that I do in sports, there's some element of what I've learned in the military that plays into that. And let's be honest, in the sports and some of the things I've been able to accomplish in the business arena, that's a dog eat dog world there. So a lot of those unique skill sets from the business world and being a coach and owner, that actually helped played into many of my leadership traits in the military. So one definitely plays off the other.
Okay. So how do you go and become an officer now? They've now said,
So
hey,
yeah,
we,
while I was at Ellsworth, I got picked up for a program called ASCP, is the Airman Scholarship and Commissioning Program. Is where you go to finish your undergraduate degree and go to an ROTC school to finish it. I ended up picking Colorado State University. I took a trip out there, visit the campus, and I tell you, I fell in love from day one with CSU. And once again, that was another no looking back. The moment I got there, I spoke to the commander of the ROTC detachment, told him how excited I was potentially about going there. So once I fully submitted my package, it was just a weight game to see if I was accepted. And once I was accepted, August 10th of 2001 is when I actually left South Dakota and went to Fort Collins, Colorado to start my journey to become an officer.
so you come out of that program. Now you're an officer, right? Didn't you
Yeah,
say they sent you back to Montana?
this is the very unique things about the military, right? So I become a space and missile officer, and during that time frame, missiles was kind of the first track of the career field. You do a missile assignment, and then they send you off to do a space assignment. So knowing that I was going to go do a missile assignment, there was only 3 bases that I can go to, and my detachment commander said, "Hey, we're sending you back to Montana." And I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, that wasn't really the ideal I was looking for, but hey, you follow your orders and we'll make the best out of this assignment the second go around. And I did. It was a great assignment the second go around.
So you said something to me earlier, though. What was your assignment when you went back? Something with nuclear.
Yeah, so while I was up at Montana, I was assigned as a ICBM missile commander, i.e., a nuclear missile commander. I did that job for going 3.5, close to 4 years. And then it was time for me to move. And then I ended up moving to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and was stationed at Schriever Air Force Base. And that's where I did my space assignment, where I was assigned to a unit, the Second Space Operations Squadron, and their mission was the GPS satellite. So
You told me when we talked earlier that you were living in capsules under the earth. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think people find that quite interesting.
yeah,
Is
that's the
part of the
world of
nuclear? Is this part of the nuclear thing?
it.
Yeah, the
It
research.
is. It
Okay.
is. When you are a missileer, you go through very rigorous training and evaluations. And when you are certified to go up and pull an alert, you drive out to the missile field, which depends on where you're at in relation to the base. That could be a long drive or a short one. And then once you get out there, you take this nice old 20s, 30s style elevator deep into the Earth's crust, and you sit on console where you actually help protect and defend this great nation. by having the authority to launch nuclear weapons. Of course, you always pray that you never have to do that, but you're the person that's sitting on console if that call ever comes.
Wow. How far down are you?
About 70 feet.
70 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So didn't you tell me there were times when there's really nothing to do? You're sort of studying your playbook?
Well, like in any job, there's always downtime. And for
Uh-huh.
me, I never waste a moment of time. Just like reading a book before you go to bed, I would lay in my cot and, I would read the playbook. I would, study different coaches. I would study different schemes. I would learn as much as I could about the game of football. I already knew a lot, but that was me taking it to another level. So I always use those moments of that downtime of, right before going to sleep or maybe while eating a meal or something, where I would pull out a book, pull out my playbook, pull out my play calling sheet, and then I'm just going through it, memorizing, kind of visualizing how I see a game being orchestrated out on the field
Mhm.
through play calling. So that's kind of how it happened.
So then you've accomplished certain things that you've wanted to accomplish from a military career, and that's still a story that's being written,
That's
and
still a story.
it's
Yes.
still a story that's being written, and simultaneously pursuing a sports athletic coaching and ownership career, and simultaneously you completed your college education. Uh, by all measures, coming from a poor town in Louisiana with really no opportunity, you really shouldn't have accomplished 1/10 of what you've accomplished. It's quite incredible what you've done. My question is, how did you do it? How, obviously the military gave you the springboard, but the rest is up to you. How do you do that? How do you do all of those things and
Well, I tell
accomplish
you
all
the
of
biggest.
that?
I think that one of the biggest things for me, and I learned this over time, especially when I joined the military and started traveling, is I started just having this passion for living life to the fullest. Life is way too short. I've seen some very interesting things from growing up in Louisiana. And once I got, quote unquote, out into the world, I was able to see things and participate into things and was offered opportunities I would never imagine ever being a part of. So my passion really started to fuel itself.
Mhm.
I noticed that my stamina really increased, but it increased with a sense of joy behind it. My drive, I guess you can say overdrive, it just kept going and going and going. And even there were times where I had to ask myself, what is really doing this to you? Why? Why are you really pushing
What's your why?
yourself to the max? A lot of people who push themselves, they get burnt out within a couple of years. And I always, in the back of my mind, always remember what it took for my mother and my father to actually raise me as a kid. My mom didn't have a job; she was a stay-at-home mom, and I really credit her for that emotional intelligence piece of me.
Mm.
And then my dad, going to work on a sugarcane plantation, I really looked at dad quite differently. Seeing him out in the sugarcane fields, looking at him at the sugar mills, him driving tractors, and having a household of 5 kids, I saw what poor means. I'm not talking about project poor. I'm talking about poor when you're asking neighbors for money, family members for money. I remember seeing my dad grab his lawnmower one time, and ironically, I happened to be riding my bike up the street from where we live, and I saw him cutting grass. He was actually cutting the grass of a white person just to make an extra couple bucks so he can come home and take care of the family. Those
Mm.
things don't leave
Mm-mm.
anyone. So for me, I would be doing my parents a disservice if I didn't put every ounce of energy into life that I possibly could.
Boom.
I saw them struggle. So I guess this drive, this relentless drive, this passion, seeing life and all opportunities it provides, it really is a testament to them raising me.
That's great. I guess, what would you say to somebody that's coming from a similar background right now that maybe doesn't think that those opportunities exist? What would be the
Right out
path?
of the
What would be the path that you would recommend, and what would be the words of encouragement that you might give someone, a young person?
You and I, we talked earlier, and I think the first bit of advice I would give someone is you got to value yourself. You have to value yourself, and you truly, truly have to enter the world with a very open mind. Closed minds often run into closed doors. So if you have a very open mind about what life can provide you, what different opportunities, what paths those opportunities can lead to, you would be absolutely amazed what an open mind can really do. And then hold yourself accountable to a work ethic standard that's
Mhm.
above reproach. I tell people all the time, you might be the smartest person in the room, might be way smarter than me. You can have a tremendous amount of degrees, maybe more degrees than me. But one thing I will guarantee is that you will never outwork me. You can try, but you'll die doing it. So that's kind of my approach to life. And that truly would be my advice to anyone is value yourself, truly invest into who you are, into the world, no matter what career field, with a very open mind, because opportunities are all over the place. Hold yourself accountable to having a work ethic and have a standard, establish a standard that you know for a fact, once you drop below it, you can hold yourself accountable to it. If you approach anything in life with those type of traits and that mentality, I think you can find success anywhere.
And be real with yourself, right? Don't make excuses. Like you said, hold yourself
You have
accountable.
to.
Hold yourself accountable to yourself, right?
Yeah, you have to. I think too often we are very quick to blame others. And yes, in some cases, rightfully so. It just depends on the dynamic or the environment that you're in. But that doesn't mean that you stop. It doesn't mean that you give up. It doesn't mean that you quit. All it means is, okay, let me take that energy, let me place it somewhere else, and let me look for another opportunity. I always tell folks the worst thing you can actually generate is negative energy, because negative energy breeds negative energy at some point. And sometimes negative energy can disguise itself. You can almost convince yourself that you're working hard, but you're not. You can convince yourself, I'm putting in the hours, but maybe you're not putting in as many hours as you should be. I like to consider that negative energy disguising itself. So you have to recognize that about yourself, do that self reflection, and really understand, if you want to pursue your dream, these are the things you have to accomplish. You have to put the work ethic standard and hold yourself accountable to it day in and day out. Nothing is handed to you on a silver platter, not if you want to really pursue your dream. So I tell folks all the time, uh, don't let anyone tell you no. No one should ever tell you no. I've had people tell me that in my career. Yeah, he might become an officer, but he'll make it to captain or major, and that'll be it. And here I am, a lieutenant colonel. Oh well, he's in sports, but he's reaching too far for the stars. He'll never be able to do what he's saying he's doing. But yet, I built a football team in the city of Colorado Springs. Oh, and then all of a sudden, this podcast that we started, out of a basement, now is on ESPN Denver 1600. Never let anyone tell you that you can't accomplish anything.
You're getting some really good guests, and you're getting some attention on that show.
Yeah, I'm beyond excited on how it's taken a life of its own. We've had Merrill Hodge on, we've had Ladarius Wally, former defensive back for the Tennessee Titans. Just recently, we had a former vice president of football operations of the Detroit Lions, and Mr. Larry Lee. So this thing has taken on a life of its own. But I do know how much effort it takes to make it all happen, though. And that's something that you can't let go to the wayside. You always have to make that investment.
Difference Makers is powered by Verity Search. In today's competitive war for talent, they understand recruiting requires having a strong sales and marketing approach. Recruiting is not posting jobs online and waiting for unqualified people to apply. It's active, it's engaging, and it's working with people while maintaining extreme confidentiality. Their solutions and techniques are innovative and brave, but based on industry knowledge and key identification strategies. Some of the key services include strategy planning, research, marketing, prospect identification, qualification, and recruitment across all markets and geographies. If you'd like more information, please check out the website at veritysearch.com. So you've talked about tapping into that inner drive. What's next? Pushing yourself out of your box, so to speak, pushing the limits, being inquisitive, having that positive mental attitude, valuing yourself, losing the negative energy in your life. Those are all great things. Are there any other unique skills or habits that you think have helped you become successful, like time management, perhaps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Time management. I get joked on a lot about time management because there's a lot of folks who believe that I truly don't sleep. Uh, and yeah, when you look
I
at
saw
my resume,
somebody, I think it was a couple weeks ago on the internet, one of the motivational speakers, he said, sleep's for losers. I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm not a loser. I need my sleep.
yeah, I think right out of the gate for me, it's really about being organized and being, for me, being very meticulous. Uh, People that know me know that I'm very organized. I'm very meticulous about how I accomplish things. It allows for that order to take place. But what I also really focus on is making sure that as I'm, you know, really drilling home to time management skills, looking at a normal day, how do you actually balance a day? For someone who works a normal, let's say 7 to 4, 8 to 5 type job, when you're off of your job, what are you doing with the rest of that time? If you're someone who doesn't work on a weekend, what are you doing with that time? Time is all around us, believe it or not. Time is all around us. It's just a matter of what are you doing with that time? Look, there are some folks out there that they need 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and God bless them, have at it. But then there's folks like me, 6 hours of sleep. What does that mean for me? That means that probably at night, anywhere between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., either I'm, studying with my daughters or teaching them something because of schoolwork. But then after that, I'm not spending a lot of time, with the TV shows. Now, don't get me wrong, I do get my TV shows in, but I utilize a lot of that time. And I tell folks between 7 and 9, that's 2 hours. It doesn't seem like a lot, but start adding those 2 hours up every day over a course of time. That actually makes out a something. Maybe you're working on a package. Maybe you're working on a business proposal. You can work on that type of stuff over time, and you will find that time is there. On a weekend, are you sleeping into 10, 11 o'clock? I will tell you, if you're doing that, hey, more power to you. But there are folks like me that are waking up maybe at 7 or 8, and we're already on the grind. So it's really about truly managing your time and organizing it. So for me, organizing and time management really go hand in hand for me.
Well, they would have to for you, having accomplished all of the things you've accomplished and simultaneous to each other, which is it's quite incredible. And then, you know, balancing that time for your kids, right? For your family, for your wife and
Yeah,
kids.
I get that a lot. A lot of folks like, wow, how do you balance, doing all of that and the devoting time to your kids? Guess what? I still go to all my kids' events unless there's some type of military obligation. I'm at their award ceremonies and I'm at their school plays. This past summer, we did a lot of camping and RVing, and we have ATVs, and the girls got the ATV. I think we went out about 7 or 8 times. But once again, that's me being devoted to that time management. You can't just say, oh, let's put some time aside, and then you never get it accomplished. If you're going to put it aside, you dedicate yourself to that time. And if you do that, you'll find that, it's going to relax you. And then before you know it, you'll find more time is going to, just kind of pop up on your calendar. And then
2 hours, it's like you said, 2 hours a day, that's 10 hours a week. It's 40 hours a month. That's 480 hours a year, right? Even
that's
if you
extra
did, even if you
time.
did half of that, that's
Even if you get half of that,
200
you
and
are,
something hours towards your passion, right?
yeah, exactly. And as you're pursuing your passion, another thing, I won't necessarily call it a skill set. I'll just say it's a trait. You have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are a lot of settings that, for me, I shouldn't have been in personally, in my humble opinion. Sitting at a conference table with millionaires, folks who own businesses, and so forth, and I'm there trying to articulate why I want to build a semi-pro team in Colorado Springs. When I started working with a minor league baseball team here locally, and I wanted to do something that no other owner had ever accomplished, I wanted to partner football with baseball. We had a team here in Colorado Springs called the Sky Sox. They were the minor league team for the Milwaukee Brewers, and I wanted to partner with them. That was some very uncomfortable environments I was walking into, but I had to become comfortable with that because that's what this world is all about. Not everything is rosy, not everything is bright. If you want to achieve what you are dreaming, not everything is going to be comfortable. You will be put in very uncomfortable environments. People are going to look at you differently, and you got to be okay with that. And then showcase who you are. And over time, you will find that you will build relationships, network, you will connect with folks that you probably thought you would never connect with ever. But that's why I always tell folks, you got to become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Good friend of mine, Eddie Perez, says God protects the bold.
Ah, there you go.
You know, more is lost by bad decision than indecision, I always say. So I'm kind of similar in that fashion that when I was younger, we would ride around in the car with the family and people see life go by. You look out the window and things are going by but the inquisitive nature that you referred to earlier, I would look at buildings and I'd say, who thought to buy that land to build that building? Who drew up the plans to build that building, and who owns that building? And why can't I own a building like that? Or why can't I do that? Or I never just I never just went through life looking at things that way. And it was, sometimes it was frustrating, but a lot of times it was exciting to think about what's possible, the other things that you could accomplish outside of just kind of punching in, punching out, going to a regular job.
Yeah.
So tell me, Roland, who in your mind were some of the more impactful influencers for you growing up and even into your adult career?
That's a great question. I know I mentioned earlier about my mother and father. I think when I look at both of them, my mother, I think she really installed this emotional intelligence we call now, that knowing and always having a sense of empathy for people. Looking at my dad and seeing his work ethic, I think that really honed in with me. But once I got out into the world per se, I ran across some folks. One being Ken McKinney. He's a retired colonel, and he always made it a point to provide me advice that was beyond the normal mentorship relationship. I remember one of the advices as he was pushing me to become an officer. I hung around some folks, and some of those folks weren't looked upon as very positive people, even though I was kind of a level-headed guy. I was very shy. I remember him saying,
You were shy?
I was very
I
shy.
don't buy it.
People will tell you what you see today is definitely not how I grew up. I was kind of the shy kid with, these big, Coke bottle eyeglasses, with the no name brand clothes, going to school. That was just kind of me. But he would always tell me, when you take negative people out of your environment, you will see a world of change. when you surround yourself with positive people. And to this very day, I still remember that was a comment. I don't remember the exact date, but I do remember it was in April of 1998 when he told me that. And I will never forget how that really influenced how I felt about how I carried myself, how I went after various opportunities. Also, I worked for an individual, a Chief Master Sergeant Michael Wilson, and he would always pull me to the office, and he was a very funny guy too, because he would put me in the office and he'll sit back in his chair and he'll put his hands like this, and he'll rock back and forth. But as he's doing this, he's just spewing knowledge. And that was almost a daily occurrence with me. He would just pop me in his office, he'll get into that mode, and he'll just start spewing knowledge. And whether he believed it or not at that time, I was soaking it all in. Um, I'm not really a guy who, look at TV actors or people like that in the entertainment business as major motivators. But there is one that I did see and I became hooked, not because of his exceptional talents on the basketball court, but because of his work ethic standard. And that actually was Kobe Bryant. I know most people see Kobe Bryant and see all his achievements and accolades and phenomenal dunks on the basketball court. When I would look at him in interviews and they would talk about his work ethic, I really zoned into that. The things that he did to outpace his peers on a basketball court was almost the same approach I took with my career. Hey, I will outwork you. I will do my best to outwork you. So those are the folks I would look at right now and say had the most impact on my life. Now, I've ran across a lot of people along the way, now a retired colonel. But at the time I met him, he was a major getting ready to be promoted to a lieutenant colonel, Mike Manor, and his style of leadership wasn't just about, rigid leadership. It was about coaching because he had a background at the Air Force Academy playing baseball, and then he was a coach on the baseball team at one point. So there was a whole lot of coaching he did. And when he learned that I was into sports and the things I was doing, we always shared, thoughts and different ideologies about leadership in sports and business. So I've run across people like that in the latter part of my career here, where I'm still learning, I'm still listening, I'm still developing. And I tell anyone, development never stops. Development is a constant. To the day I die, I'm going to be developing myself. And I think that, that's a part of that drive, that relentless drive in pursuit of excellence.
You had this great military career. You've been influenced by so many good people and great leadership, and now are you looking to do that for others? What's your goal there? I mean, obviously you got into coaching for a reason. It wasn't just that you enjoyed winning football games. It was more, right? It was leading men, right? Teaching and leading. What about the youth? Do you have any desire to do anything with the young people?
Yeah, actually, I've been involved in some programs where I would go out, talk to some youths, and provide them advice. Oftentimes, when I'm out there, whether I'm giving a speech or inspiring a small group of youth, I'm trying to get them to see the world beyond what they see on day-to-day television. Do research on their own, educate themselves. Education is a huge part of who I am. I instill that in my daughters. Trust me, they know that 100%. Education is absolutely, in my opinion, is critical to be an active member of society.
So, Roland, you gave a commencement speech recently, didn't you, or in the last few years?
Well, when I graduated Colorado State University, I was the student commencement speaker, and that was definitely a chance of a lifetime to speak to a sea of students out there and giving them your perspective. I still, to this very day, I remember that speech. I named it Today, and the premise of the speech was to really take hold of that moment that we were all in together. So I finished that speech up by saying, today is yours for the taking, but tomorrow is yours for the making. And that was my way of telling folks, enjoy this time, enjoy this moment, but the rest is up to you. We're done with the professors and so forth. The rest is up to you. And that was a great time. I got to spend a lot of time with some professors before I gave my speech, and definitely one of the greatest honors I've actually had.
And then you did some college scouting, pro scouting at the East-West Shrine Bowl, right? Talk about that.
Yeah. So, after I finished this sports management program, I had the opportunity and the privilege of going to the NFL Combine twice in 2018, again in 2019, and again in early 2020. And then from there, I was selected for an apprenticeship program, working under Mr. Dan Janka, who is pretty much the NFL scout guru. And he was also the executive director for the East-West Shrine Bowl that was in Tampa. So had the opportunity to go down there, learn from him, be on the field with the players, other NFL scouts, and learn directly from the professionals. So what a great opportunity. And of course, there was a whole lot, many other opportunities that were on the way. But then, of course, COVID hit and changed our worlds.
If you could give someone some advice that's coming from an environment that you came out of as a young man, as a young boy, maybe just in a few words, what would you say to that person? Or what would you say to Roland Rainey at 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old? What would you go back and say to your young self right now?
I would actually tell my young self, the world is vast. Prepare for it. I think too often, especially kids in middle school going into high school, there's not a lot of preparation. You kind of go through the routines of getting your education, but truly preparing yourself for a world that you have not been actively involved in, getting to understand some of the nuances of the workplace, what it means to have a job, what it means to, pay off a credit card, like really prepare yourself. I can tell you, I was probably one of the most greenest kids in the military. I was still 17 when I went to boot camp. There was a whole lot that I just didn't know about the world. I had to learn it along the way. It was just a very humbling experience up to this point, and it still continues to be a very humbling experience to see the world in its vastness and things that you never thought you would be a part of or be learning about, that you're now in that position. But you got to prepare yourself for that. And I would say, I don't think I had a lot of preparedness to enter the world. I basically finished the high school, got a diploma, and then boom, I'm in the world. So I would tell anyone out there listening, especially a 7 to 8 year old, take time to prepare yourself.
Or even into a young teen, 12, 13, 14 years old. Think you know everything and you don't. So speaking of COVID, so COVID kind of takes you out of the scouting realm, this pursuit, this new pursuit of yours. And here you are now. Now the scouting combines have become somewhat virtual, less attendance, right?
Right.
And you're still active military, but typical Roland Rainey fashion, can't stay still, right? So what's next?
Right.
And you start a podcast. This is Mr. Introvert who was shy. Now you start a podcast.
Yeah, I met some great scouts at these events, and I call them my colleagues now because they are a part of this new venture of mine. And knowing that there wasn't going to be a whole lot going on, definitely not knowing what the season was going to look like, if there was even going to be a college or NFL season, I figure, how do I keep the information fresh? How do I keep, football fans intrigued? with all these different experiences I had at the East-West Shrine Bowl, at the NFL Combine, how do I keep people interested? So I decided, I'm like, well, I'm gonna just go ahead and start a podcast. And there was a whole lot that I learned from that process. The one thing I would tell anyone who is thinking about just generating and starting a podcast, whatever you do not download an app and just start talking. That is not effective. You will not garner any type of audience, and you definitely won't be talking about anything with substance. So I would give people the advice, you know, as you are thinking, or even if you are teasing the idea of starting your own podcast show, write out what is going to be the substance of your show. What message are you trying to push out to your listeners, and invest a lot of time into shaping that message. Because what you don't want to do is just become the person that's sitting there on the couch just rambling, and there's nothing of substance there. Before you download any app, whatever you want to talk about, write it down, think about it, and really structure it. So by the time you invest into equipment and you're ready to go, now you know what your platform is going to look like, and you know what your messaging is going to be.
So tell me, what is your podcast theme, and what is your substance of your podcast? Why is it different?
So what we do is we try to provide a very analytical approach to through the lens of a scout, how we see the game. You know, oftentimes you're looking at football and if you're just a fan sitting at home, you're wondering, you know, why did that player get traded? Or why did that player take such a stance and held out? Why did that coach make such a call? Why did the front office staff make such a decision? We take our experiences from those different areas that we've had the privilege of being a part of, and we provide that analytical approach to it. For example, and this is a great example, when we had Merrill Hodge on, one of the topics we got into was basically concussions, and how concussions took on this different mantra in the NFL. Of course, everybody sees that there's a lot of new rules, a lot of flags are thrown for leading with the crown of your helmet. And if you're the average fan, you're sitting at home thinking, it's football. They should be making that type of contact. Mm-hmm. But then when you start getting into the nuances of why we want to protect players, why we want to make sure that there is no type of brain injuries that are sustained that can cripple you for the rest of your life. So we really deep dive into those type of topics. We like to deep dive into player interactions and player decisions, and what does that mean for the team and the organization. So those are the type of things that we do to bring a different flavor, a different lens to talking about sports in general.
Yeah, that concussion subject is a hot one right now. I know that ended Merrill Hodge's career, and you know, you hear stories about, and I won't name names, but you know, some famous quarterbacks that I've watched grow up. One of which, in particular, would go to the grocery store and get lost coming home, didn't know how to get back to his house. These are real important issues, and I'm glad the NFL is taking a stance on that finally. You know, as a football coach myself, growing up, we always told our kids, don't lower your head, don't lead with your head, put your head to the side. Nothing more shocking than seeing two kids, young kids, do that, you know, just helmet to helmet. Never mind grown men, you know, with all that force and ability and strength. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, so those are the type of things we like to talk about and bring to light. And then, of course, there's always a fun side, right? So we did an episode, I called it the fan experience. And what I did is allow fans to, via Twitter or Facebook, to send us a question that they have on their mind about anything going on in the NFL or the NCAA. And we picked the best four, and we did a show. We highlighted those individuals who, you know, sent the questions in, and we built a show just off of that, and brought the fans into the experience of sports and how things are looked. And funny enough, one of the questions, just to kind of give you some example here, one of the questions was about the the quarterback for the Washington football team and whether or not he was a good fit. And I kid you not, we had a very robust debate about this particular quarterback. And a week later, that quarterback was caught at a gentleman's club not following the COVID protocols. And then 2 weeks later, it was actually kicked off the team.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fact that a fan out there was thinking about that stuff and the way we got into a pretty healthy debate about whether or not he was a good fit or not, once again, just allowed us to bring the fans into the experience of understanding sports.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time that you've spent with us and telling us a little bit about where you came from and what you've accomplished and some of the things that helped you accomplish those things. Quite an incredible journey. You're 45 years old. You've got so much more. I think the story's still being written, as you said. I told you before, I think there's a book in you somewhere at some point. Man, I just want to say thank you so much for us, for our audience, for everyone that gets to hear this story. It's quite motivational. It's quite inspiring and enlightening. So,
well, thank you. That's my goal is to continuously work hard, set the example, and inspire others that despite your upbringing, despite your environment, despite your social economic status, you can accomplish a lot. Just enter the world with a very open mind and be dedicated to establishing a sound work ethic. And then the sky is the limit.
Awesome. Thanks again, man. Thank you, Roland. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it.